Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Thrive 2021. This session today is for the What's New presentation for the retail side of Jonas. Um, and before we get started, let's go over some intros. So my name is Greg Archibald. I'm the professional services, one person in professional services. There's a whole team. And I'm joined today with Alyssa Reese. She's our digital education specialist. Amongst many, many other things, she does the how-to videos on our YouTube page. If you haven't checked that out, definitely do that. I'll be referring back to those a couple times during today's presentation. So thank you, Alyssa, for joining me. What to expect for today's session. If you haven't seen it so far, if you haven't looked over there should be a chat box on your screen. Any questions at all during today's presentation, feel free to use that chat box. I know there's a lot of people in today's presentation, so if there's any questions that I don't get to during the presentation, I will reach out to you afterwards, so don't worry. And the sessions are all recorded today as well, so if you ever need to go back and watch this again, by all means, you will have the ability to do so. All right, and the agenda for today, we're going to go over everything retail related, so mostly club inventory and point of sale, but we'll also cover some tea time management options, and there's a bunch of new tea time management features in there that we'll go over, some really good ones too. So let's go ahead and dive right into it. Okay, we'll start with club inventory. So for club inventory, we changed two of the reports that we have, and in my opinion, probably two of the better reports that we have in club inventory. And that is the detailed sales reports as well as the detailed margin analysis report. And for those, specifically the margin analysis, I'm a big fan of that one. You could have always run this reports in a comparative way. So you could have done this year's margins versus last year, this month versus last month. That was always an option for you, but we gave you the ability to make some user-defined date ranges. So if your fiscal year doesn't kind of match, I guess, the calendar year, by all means, you can put whatever date ranges you want in there and do a comparative report like that. Okay, and this is just kind of a little demo of what that report would look like. It looks like we didn't have any sales back in 2019, but you can see the two date ranges there being compared, and you can see all of your sales, sales dollars, your cost, and your profit margins. Okay, next one here is for the label printing. So Zebra came out with a new printer, the Z or Z, depending on where you are. This ZD410 model is now an option in Jonas. So you certainly can get that printer and use it in Jonas, no problem. This one here, we've actually added this to a couple different programs, but the SKU analysis is one of them. Um, one big thing that we've been trying to do for all the clients out there is we've been trying to get people to clean up their system a little bit. And one great way of doing that is to start inactivating or deactivating your items and SKUs. And if you do that, of course, we don't really want to show your deactivated SKUs on your reports. So now you have the ability to not show those inactive SKUs or not show SKUs that were not sold. Okay, and that's it for inventory. So later on, we'll go back to point of sale, which a lot of those things kind of connect with each other. But let's go into the tea time features. So first one here is for the extracted times in Jonas. And a lot of people ask me during these sessions, what is an extracted tea time? So extracted times are times that somebody else is working on. So whether that is somebody else in your club that's currently in the process of booking a tea time, or if that's a member at home that's online booking a tea time, anybody who is working on a specific time, that can be highlighted on your tea sheet. So the last thing you want to do is take over a tea time that your member is currently signing up for and book it a little bit faster than them, and then all of a sudden they get kicked out. So now you do have the ability to highlight those times. Okay, this one's just kind of making the program a little bit more uniform with the other programs that we have. When you run the end of day report for the tea time program, you now have the ability, just like most of the other sales reports, you can export that report to just our viewer, PDF, or if you hit the smart viewer button, that's Excel. Okay, another little small one here. We have the autofill description. So we've made quite a few changes that are just little small changes that obviously add up after a little while, save you a little bit of time, save you some clicks. This is one of those small features. If you've ever made a block on your T-sheet, all you need to do is type in the block description, and then Jonas will automatically take that description and fill it into the short description lines there. So just a little feature, but save you a little bit of time. Next one is for your online T-sheets. When you put your T-sheet online, there is an online options section on the right there, if you've seen that before. And that gives you the ability to make your T-sheet temporarily unavailable to your members until a certain number of days prior and at a certain time as well. So if you do want to activate that feature, by all means, it is in Jonas now. And then this is one of the bigger features that we've added this year for the Tea Time program. We've added the ability to add T-sheet rules. And there's 5 different rules that you can set here. I'm going to go through all 5 of them. The first one on the top right of the screen there is one rule that you can apply to the entire T-sheet. And the other 4 rules are rules that you can apply to individual tea times. So also, just a side note here on this screen, there's a little video icon in the bottom left. You're going to see that a few times during today's presentation. Whenever you see that, that means we have a video on our YouTube page on how this works. So by all means, Alyssa's giving me the thumbs up there. By all means, if you want a little bit more detail on this, check out our YouTube page. Really good video on this one. But for that first rule, it is a rule that you would apply to your entire T-sheet, and that rule is for a total players. Now, how you adjust this rule and how you input it at your club, it's very, very customizable. I'm just going to give you a couple options or a couple demos for these rules and how I applied it to my club. So for me, for this one, I did a rule that is a 20 guest maximum per day. Okay, so in these screenshots here, you can see it says 20 guest maximum, and then I applied that to my guest golfer classification. And for any of these rules, you can also go over to the right-hand side of the screen there, and you can choose to only apply this rule for certain days of the week, certain times of the day, certain times of the year. So very, very customizable. Again, that was just one scenario that I kind of built in there, a max number of guests, but you can customize this however you want. Okay, and then for this rule, once you create it, you do have to attach it to your T-sheets. And there's 2 ways that you can do that. You can attach it within the T-sheet templates section or within T-sheet maintenance, whatever's easier for you, depending on if you've actually opened up that T-sheet yet. Okay, and then the other 4 rules that we have, these rules you would attach to individual tee times on your T-sheet. So I'll walk you through all 4 of these rules. The first one here is for a minimum players. So the most common scenario I find for this one, and the one that I have in my screenshots, is a minimum of 2 players per booking. So at your club, if you do, and I know a lot of clubs are the same for this, if you have a rule where no single golfers can sign up for a tee time, you can certainly build that into your tee sheet now. And again, you would attach these to individual times. So I've seen clubs that say no single golfers, only in the AM times. That's always an option for you. Okay, and then there's just a little write-up here for the booking minimum players. So by all means, I know there's a lot of text on some of these slides. So I believe, Alyssa, if I'm correct here, everybody has or can have a PDF version of today's presentation. So if anybody needs to go back and read these descriptions, by all means. The next rule here is the tee time max players. May not be used quite as much here, but we've given you the ability to do a minimum number of players. You can also do a maximum, if that applies to you as well. The other restriction here is a golfer classification restriction. So again, you can apply these rules to individual tee times. And what I did for this one, and I find this is probably the most common example, is I made member-specific tee times or member-only tee times. So I applied this rule to my club members golfer classification there. And so I'm going to apply this rule to, let's say, my prime time tee times. So Saturday from 8 to 10, that will be a member-only time block. Okay, and then the last rule here is the golfer classification accompaniments. So we've always had accompaniments in Jonas, but now you do have the ability to make it individual per tee time. And I would say the most common example for this one would be if your junior golfers at your club, if they have restrictions for when they can play, you can build it into the program and say, maybe juniors aren't allowed to play in your prime time, Saturday from 8 to 10, unless they're accompanied by a full golf member. Then they are allowed to play. So you can certainly build that into the program as well. Lots of different options here for your rules. And then once you've created those rules, you do have to attach those to your golfer classifications. And how do we do that? So there's two spots. If you go into your tee sheet templates, or if you go into tee sheet maintenance, you can check out the restrictions button or the expert button. After this presentation, we're all going to be experts, so feel free to click into there. And then all you do is just click on each individual tee time that you want this rule to apply to and select the rule that you want to use. So very simple. Now you don't actually have to click on each individual time. If you want to apply this to, let's say, all of your AM tee times, you can highlight that entire column or as many times as you'd like, and you can apply that rule to a bunch of different tee times all at once. Okay, and then the last part for the tee sheet rules. So lots of new features here. But if you do have any rules attached to tee times, you can set it up so that that rule displays on your tee sheet by default. So here I have the minimum 2 players per booking, no singles allowed in the morning. And so you can see in the bottom part of this screen, if that rule is applied to certain tee times, it can show there for you. So you'll see at first glance, sorry, we can't have singles in the morning. There's my rule front and center. Okay, moving on to the lottery system. So this is one that is probably the most customizable and the most customized program that we have in Jonas. Every club has that has the lottery uses it in a slightly different way. So we've given you a lot more customizable options in here. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the lottery, I'll just give you a quick 1-minute overview here. A lottery system is just a way for usually very busy clubs to have a fair chance at getting tee times for your members. So a lot of people I know use it just for the weekends, and that allows all your members to sign up for the time that they'd like to get. And then once you have all those signups, you can run the lottery. And if you have multiple members signing up for the 11 a.m. time, some members will get that 11 a.m. time. Some members will be pushed back to 11:30, maybe 12 o'clock if you're really busy. And depending on what time they got, your members will get a certain number of points. So the member who did get the 11 a.m. time right on the dot, they'll get, let's say, 50 points. The person who got the 11:30 a.m. time, they're going to get 25 points. So the next time you run those lotteries, those points will come into play, and then it's an odds-based system after that. So the person with the least amount of points is most likely to get their time. So that's just a brief overview of the lottery system. So now let's talk about how we can sort of customize that for your club. So we've added the ability to do an average number of points versus a total number of points. So we've run into a couple scenarios over the years where a member would play every day of the week in the lottery, but they wouldn't get close to their time. Whereas one member would play once a week, they would get their time exactly. And then based on the setup of your points, if you have a total number of points, that member who never got their tee time or even close to it would still be at a disadvantage compared to the member who did get their one tee time. So it's a little bit difficult to explain the scenarios there, but the gist of it is you can have a total number of points being used for calculation or just an average points. Okay, the other option for these weighting calculations is over here on the right, you can have your points distributed amongst all tee times. So if I signed up for a Saturday lottery and I got 20 points, those points would apply to any other lottery that I run on any day of the week. Or you can set it up so it matches perfectly for the day of the week. So you can say for my Monday lotteries, whatever points I get there would only apply to the next Monday's lottery and every subsequent Monday. Or you can separate it out by weekends and weekdays. So all of my lottery points on the weekends would only apply to next weekend's lottery. That's certainly an option for you. Or you can do custom parameters and you can completely customize that point structure for your club. So tons of different options for you for your lottery points, and it's really just in an effort to make it more fair for your members and give you the opportunity to customize it for your club. And then one more feature here for the lottery. So lots of new features. Uh, you have the ability now to assign the priority based on booking size. So you can say foursomes and threesomes, they get priority over single golfers and twosomes, which most clubs do set that up. Or you can just say largest to smallest bookings, they get priority, completely up to you. Or if you don't want to do that all, you can turn that off and say no assignment priority. Okay, jumping into the point of sale, lots of new features in here as well. First one is for the end of shift reporting. So most of you, when you look at your end of shift, it's going to give you a little sales summary for the day. So you might see something like your soft goods versus your hard goods. You might have merchandise versus green fees versus cart sales. All that's listed on your end of shift. Now we have the ability to reorganize that end of shift. Okay, the next feature here, I'm going to give you a little demo on how this works because I find it's a bit of an underutilized feature in Jonas. But the one that's on the slide is a server sales by reporting group. And now you can do a summary by user export. And so what that is, we give you a little demo on the bottom of the screen there of what that could look like. And it just gives you a listing of all of your staff or your employees that have logged sales for the day. And it gives you a total sales, and then it breaks it down by your reporting groups. So my total sales for golf bags, golf balls, carts, green fees, you can separate all that by person. But the one thing that I will go into Jonas and show you in here is that export button that you see on the screen right here. I find a lot of people really underutilize that export button. And so I'm going to show you a little feature in here that you might want to take advantage of on your system. So let's go into Jonas. And I'll show you in point of sale, sales and revenue reports. And this applies to pretty much every report that we have in here. I'll just run kind of a basic one here. I'll do a sales by item. So whenever you go in here and you're about to run a report, most people out there, I would assume that you would click right into the print button and you would either use the view button or the PDF button if you want to view in PDF. Or there is a smart viewer option there as well, which would send this to Excel. So all good options, and that's probably what most of you do right now. What you could do instead is when you go in and run this sales by item report, you can go down and instead of hitting the print button, you can go into export. And then in here, we have the columns option in the top right. So if you click on columns, this will show you, your screen would look like this. It would show you a list of every single column or field that we're going to bring into this report. So just by default, you're going to see a list of your sales areas, your items, the average price, number of sales, and total value. Okay, that's our standard report. Now for me and also for you on your side, you might be saying, you know what, for the area, we only have the golf shop in our club or this partition. So I don't really need that column in my report. So now what you can do is you can pick and choose which things you want to include in your report. So all I want in mind is I want my sales item description. I'll click on that. I want the number of sales and the total value of my sales. Okay, those other fields in there, I don't really need in my reports. So I can just run the report just with those three fields, and then I can send that to Excel. Okay, so if there are any reports that you're currently running out there that's maybe a little bit too big, it has all the information you need, but there's a bunch of extra columns, you can now completely customize that report to whatever you want to see. So really good option there for you. And again, that's the same for pretty much every report that you can run in the point of sale side. So don't forget about that export button. Okay, going back to the slides here. Just a small little feature here. If any of you used a third-party interface, we just kind of renamed the menu tiles there in the main menus of Jonas, and there's a third-party interfaces section now. So just a little bit more user-friendly, small little feature there. Okay, this one is a feature that is individual per computer or per terminal. And if for any reason, if a credit card gets declined, you can choose to not print that decline receipt. So just a small little option for you, but if you don't want to print those out, you can adjust that per computer. Next one here is for the interfaces. So if any of you want to do an interface or are currently doing an interface with a third-party company, we do have an interface now with Yellow Dog. They're an inventory control software, and we do have an API interface now with Yellow Dog. So just put very, very simply, some of you may be wondering what an API interface is. API is really just kind of a real-time interface between the two. So we're not sending a file at the end of the day just for a one-time kind of upload. It's just a kind of a real-time live interface between the two. Okay, this one I'm going to show you in Jonas as well. This is a great new feature that we've been pushing a lot this year. Again, going back to the cleanups in Jonas, I know a lot of you out there have had Jonas for 10, 15, 20 years at your club, in which case you probably have some old sales items from 20 years ago that are still in your system. And so we have a really good, easy way of deactivating all those sales items very quickly. So let's go into Jonas, and I'll show you how you can deactivate items en masse. So for this, it is in point of sale, system administration, and then we have our change item deactivate status. And for all of you wondering out there as well, this is an option in the point of sale and the inventory side of Jonas. So if I go into this program, and I'll leave that menu in the background visible so you can see where I am. But you've always had the ability to click on all the items that you want to deactivate. Really quick, easy way of deactivating all those items. Now what we've done in this version of Jonas this year, we've added this field for the date last sold before. So whatever date you choose to put in there, Jonas will show you all the items that you have not sold since that date. So how far back you go, that's completely up to you. I know 2020 was a bit of an off year. So I'm going to go back to 2019, and I'll say, show me all the items that I have not sold since March 22nd, 2019. So for me, all these items I haven't sold in 2 years. So personally, I'm pretty good to go ahead and deactivate all these. If I haven't sold them in 2 years, I'm probably not selling them anymore. So we'll go ahead and deactivate those. Okay, so really good option. Again, we're making a big push this year for people cleaning up their systems. This is one option for you and probably the easiest and fastest way to clean up your system. Okay, and for those of you who do work a lot on the inventory side, that was how you can deactivate your items in the point of sale. The inventory side does have the exact same program, and that is under Club Inventory Utilities, and then we have a change SKU inactive status. So pretty much exactly the same thing, but this is for your SKUs, and you have the exact same field right up there. So enter in a certain date, let's say March 22, 2020. And then here's all the items I haven't sold since that date. Okay. All right. So also I did include this screenshot here just as a little FYI. That date last sold before field, that is a field that's visible for you in the setup of all your new SKUs as well. So if you're looking to deactivate items one by one rather than just en masse, a bunch of them at once, you do have a field in there in the item setup screen or the SKU setup screen with the date last sold in there as well. Okay, the point of sale kiosk. So this is a cool new feature that I can't wait to see this being used at clubs. I think it's a really awesome feature. But this was intended for your halfway house on the course. I know a lot of clubs can't really have somebody out there at the halfway house all day long. So what you can do is you can set up a kiosk. I know a lot of people haven't been flying this past year, but this is really big at airports as well. There's a lot of self-serve kiosks there. So you can set that up with Jonas. And I have a little screenshot for what that could look like for you. I've used it myself. It's very, very user-friendly. Your members shouldn't have any problems using this. But just like the screenshots show here, they touch the screen to start the process. A menu pops up for them. And what that menu looks like is completely up to you. We've made one here with a bunch of cool pictures, makes it really easy to ring things up. And just a little side note in the picture on the right, if you look, you can sort of see that a member's scanning something on that computer too. That's a feature I'm going to come back to in just about a minute or so. But you can set up your system where your members scan items instead of actually hitting the buttons on the computer. So really cool feature there. And that is an option that's available for you right now. Okay, next one is for the limited discount. So any clubs out there who do use the limited discount button, previously you would have had to hit the limited discount button to apply that discount. Now what you can do is you can attach that limited discount to your member charge button. So again, it's the little things in Jonas that make a big difference. Anytime, especially on the point of sale, we can save your employees a couple clicks or save them a little bit of time. That's always a really good option, really good feature for us. And this is a great example of it. So rather than hitting that discount button every time, when you hit member charge, that discount will be taken off automatically for you. Okay, this feature here is for your sales reports, and this would apply to pretty much every sales report that we have in Jonas. You now have the ability to exclude certain sales areas. Um, so I know if any of you have seen a presentation with Jeremy, he always refers back to this. But he's worked with a club out there that has had about 70 sales areas, or I think 75 sales areas at their club. I don't know too many clubs out there that actually have 75 different sales areas out there. But if you do have a huge number of sales areas, you can now exclude those from your sales reports, and it makes it much easier to report off of them. Okay. This one here is sort of works in conjunction with that deactivate program that we just took a look at. And again, just as a reminder, there is a video on how to do this. And there's a whole bunch of cleanup videos that we have. But this report you should run in conjunction with your deactivating program. And just so we know as well, in Jonas, when you deactivate an item, it doesn't necessarily remove itself from your point of sale menus. So if you do a big cleanup in your system, you might have a couple buttons on there that aren't usable, but still sort of listed on your menus. This report you can run and it will show you a list of all of your items or all of your deactivated items and what menus they're on. So I'm going to go ahead and show this one as well in Jonas. And to run this report, this is what we call an F9 report. I'm sure some of you out there have heard of F9 reports. I know a lot of you haven't. So I'll show you what an F9 report is. So for this one, I'm going to go into point of sale system setup, and then we have our sales items. And before I select one of my sales items, I'm going to hit the F9 button on my keyboard. Okay. And just so you know as well, the F9 reports, you can do this whenever you get any sort of list in Jonas. So whether that's a list of your sales items, your members, your suppliers and accounts payable, anytime you get a list, you can hit F9 on your keyboard. And then most people use this for a report generator where you can sort of build your own report. But in the point of sale side, you have a bunch of other options. And what I'll show you here is you can run a item list showing menus report. So I'll go ahead and click on that. And as soon as you view this report, it's then going to ask you, do you want to view all of your active sales items and what menus they're on, your deactivated items, or both? So I'll go ahead and run this just for my deactivated items. You know what? I'm not sure how many deactivated items I have. So I'm going to go ahead and run it for both, and you can see how this shows up. And here is my report. Coming up any second here. There we go. So in this report, you can see all of my sales items that are listed. Is it deactivated? This one is marked as yes. And it just so happens that this item is currently on two of my menus, my golf balls menu and my main menu. So being that it is deactivated, I'm going to want to take this off of my menu. Really good example. Okay, so if any of you out there have done a cleanup so far this year, or if you're planning on doing a cleanup, that report is, I would think, a must for you to do after you've cleaned up your system. Okay, and then I just built in a kind of a demo here in the slides as well of what that report could look like. We just saw this, but here's another little demo for you. So we have one sales item here that is deactivated, and it is also on my Pro Shop menu. Okay, going back to our kiosk field that we talked about, if you do set up a computer as a self-serve kiosk for your members, what you can do is you can have an item scan code where your members can scan those items. Now, a little bit more on this field. Those of you who do have the inventory module in Jonas, you've always had the ability to scan your items, print off labels for those items. That's always been an option for you. Uh, but what this field is and what this feature is for those clubs out there who don't have the inventory module, you can still scan your items in Jonas. Okay, so this is what it looks like in Jonas in the item setup screen. Under the additional settings tab over there, we have an item scan code. So even though you don't have the inventory module, you can scan that item in there if you have a barcode scanner, and that will go right in. And again, it's just an option for you, or just an idea for the self-serve kiosk. Members can scan those items instead of touching the buttons. Okay, this one here is just another small feature that will save you a little bit of time, save you a few clicks. But whenever you go into a sales item, I know sometimes people want to double check some of the settings in the sales categories. If you want to double check where that revenue is going to, or what your tax rate is, that's all controlled by the sales category. So rather than exiting out of your sales item, going into the categories, coming back to the sales item, we just give you the ability to check out the quick link there to your sales categories. Okay, so just another little small option there that saves you a couple clicks. Just a friendly little feature. Okay, we've sort of talked about this one already, but anytime you print a report in Jonas, uh, and I've tested this on a few reports, it's very rare for it to happen, but it does happen. Sometimes when you hit print on a report, uh, specifically if you're running a report that has a lot of columns, there's only so much room on a piece of paper that we can fit that information. So if your sales items have a super long description, sometimes we're just not able to fit that on a piece of paper. And so every once in a while, you might notice that your sales item descriptions, they get a little bit cut off. So we've just made it available for you that anytime you export pretty much any report to Excel, nothing will be cut off over there. You'll see the full description no matter what, no matter how many columns you have. So that's always an option. If you have noticed that things getting cut off, by all means, you can export. Okay, this one here is for all the Shift 4 users out there. For your credit card processing in Jonas, if you do interface with the Shift 4 credit card processing company, we've now given you the ability to have either swipers or the chip and pin devices at your club, and you can have a mix of both. Previously, Shift 4 made it so that you can pretty much only have the chip and pin devices, or you can only have the swipers. Now you can have a mix of both. Completely depends on the computer and the terminal, but you certainly can use both devices. Okay, and wow, it looks like I've gone pretty fast through today's presentation. We're getting close to the end here. So by all means, again, everybody, if you have any questions for me at all, feel free to send me a message in the questions box. I only have a couple more slides for you. And so this one I'm actually going to go over in Jonas because it is a really important slide, and it's something that I find a lot of people, quite a lot of people actually don't know in Jonas, but it is a much better way of handling returns. So before I go over this feature, I'll go over this slide, which is the actual feature I want to talk about. In Jonas, in case you haven't heard about this before, you can design your own chit. So when you're looking at your receipts right now, if you don't like the format of it, by all means, you can design your own format and completely customize it to whatever you want to see. That has always been an option in Jonas. We've had that for many years, but now we've given you the ability to include a return chit date and return chit number. Okay, now what I get a lot at this point is a lot of people ask, what is a return chit? So a return chit is basically a more accurate way of handling returns within Jonas. Okay, so on this next slide, right here, this shows you a couple screenshots of what a return chit is and how to do it. I'm going to go into my Jonas and I'll show you a more accurate way of handling returns. Okay, so first I'll show you what most clubs typically do for returns, and then I'll show you the other option for you that I would recommend doing instead. So most clubs, what you'll do is if a member comes to you and has a product they want to return, let's say a classic Dwight Schrute move right here, he wants to return a sleeve of Pro V1s. So to handle that, normally what you do and what most of you do right now is you're just going to ring up that Pro V1 item, and then you'll ring it up as a -1 quantity. Okay, so right there you can see -1 Pro V1s, -$15, and then we'll just go ahead and settle that to his account, and that will go back as a credit on his account. Okay, just like that. And that's the way most people handle returns. The downside of doing it that way is if your member did get a discount on their original receipts, how would you know that? You know, when you give them the return or the credit back on their member account, I just give them a full refund. I have no idea if you got a discount. So the other option that you can do, and my preference would be if you're doing a return, before you select the member, go up top here to other options. And then in here, you can click on the option for return chit. Okay, as soon as you do that, you'll need to know two pieces of information. What was the original month of the original purchase? So for me, I know it was in March. And then it asks you for the chit number. Now, nobody actually knows these chit numbers. So what you can do is you can do the lookup, and then you find that member that you want to do the return for. So for me, I know it was my member, Kevin. So I'm going to look up Kevin. And it just so happened that he had 2 chits this month. So I have to try to figure out which chit it was. I know it was the most recent one. I can see the date right there. So I'm going to click on that. But you still may not be sure if that was the correct chit at this point. So you can view the archive chit. Okay, there's his receipt. And it just so happens that Kevin did get a discount on that original receipt. So it's a really good thing I'm doing it this way, or else we would have lost a little bit of money. And so now at this point, I can say create return chit. And what that does is it rings up this member with an exact duplicate of the original chit, including that discount. Also, a little side note, you can set up little pop-up messages in Jonas. If you haven't seen this or done this before, and if you're reading this, that means it worked. So again, let me know in the comments box if anybody wants to add some pop-up messages to your members. But here's that chit. So it rings up my Pro V1s as a negative quantity, and it does bring in that discount automatically for me. So in my opinion, a much more accurate way of handling returns. You'll never give a member a full refund when they got a discount. And then, of course, just member charge the rest of it, and that will post the credit to the member's account. Okay, so again, that was just in the top section of the point of sale there, other options, and then you have return chit. Okay. So everyone, I think that was pretty much all I wanted to cover for today's presentation. Um, so I'll go ahead and open it up for some questions here. Um, does anybody have any questions out there? Feel free to send me a message in the questions box. Let's see what you have out there. Also, again, for the rest of today, we have a bunch more presentations. We have a food and beverage, what's new. We have a full system tune-up. So earlier I was talking about doing a cleanup in Jonas. I believe that is at 2 o'clock, Alyssa, the system tune-up? Yeah, 2 o'clock. So if you're looking to do a full cleanup of your Jonas system, if you notice that your system's a little slow or you've had Jonas for a long time, that's a really good presentation to watch. So that's at 2 o'clock Eastern time today. Okay, perfect. All right, great. So that's pretty much all I had for today. If there's no other questions, thanks everybody for attending today's presentation. We'll see you in the next one. All right, everyone, take care.